Try to keep your introduction as factual as possible. Only by doing the brainstorming, you won't be able to write the good answers, which ultimately requires a lot of practice. These 4 months are effectively utilized by the toppers for these 3 things: the consolidation of their notes, the analysis and the brainstorming over the PYQs, and third, writing multiple mock tests. You have to analyze the toppers copies for basically 2 purposes. The first purpose being understanding their structuring and the demand understanding, and the second aspect is for the value addition. Dimension coverage, where we apply 10-6 and 15-8 formula. If you see again with respect to the cholas, there is a diagram and each point is substantiated using the specific example. This is how the framework is reflected into the answers of the toppers, and that's what we are going to do into the Samiksha program. This way, we are going to write at least 500 to 550 questions in our 40 to 45 lectures from the span of October to January. Good evening, students. So the Mains 2024 is finally over, and in last 1 week, we have had a conclave where we brainstormed and did the live answer writing on all the 4 GS papers. Now, building on that, we will be having our orientation session of PYQ Mains Samiksha program on 2nd of October at 5 p.m. So basically, it is a part of a Smash Mains program. It is a series of around 40 lectures in which we will be doing the brainstorming and live answer writing of more than 500 questions from last 7 years of the UPSC CSE Mains. In our last interaction also, we have already discussed how toppers effectively utilize the months from October to the January. So basically, these 4 months are effectively utilized by the toppers for these 3 things: the consolidation of their notes, the analysis and the brainstorming over the PYQs, and third, writing multiple mock tests. So what exactly is the meaning of the analysis or the brainstorming part? So basically, brainstorming involves the 3 things. The first is the understanding of the directives of the question. So how to apply our 70-30 formula, 60-40 formula, and 50-50 formula. That is the fundamental aspect of the brainstorming. So brainstorming involves the structuring as well as the space management aspect. The second aspect of the brainstorming is developing the theme specific frameworks. So during our discussions during the conclave, we have already talked about the pastel approach. We have already talked about the staple approach. We have already talked about the pies approach. We have already talked about the stakeholder approach. And we have already talked about the sectional approach. How to apply and where to apply these frameworks, that is the second part of the brainstorming. And the third part is analyzing the PYQs and the toppers copies. So if you see, from the PYQs, you will not only cover the important themes, but many of the PYQs are directly repeated into the UPSC CSE Mains. So having a hold over PYQs and doing the answer writing of the PYQs is one of the fundamental aspects in your mains preparation. Apart from that, you have to analyze the toppers copies for basically 2 purposes. The first purpose being understanding their structuring and the demand understanding, and the second aspect is for the value addition. Building on the brainstorming aspect, you have to simultaneously continue with the answer writing, because only by doing the brainstorming, you won't be able to write the good answers, which ultimately requires a lot of practice. So answer writing is essential basically for the presentation aspect, that is the use of the diagrams, use of the charts, graphs, enhancing the visibility of your key points. Then second is with respect to the time management. That is finishing your answer in 7 minutes. And the third aspect is the dimension coverage, where we apply 10-6 and 15-8 formula. That is, in 10 marker question, you have to have 10 dimensions and at least 6 examples or data. In 15 marker question, you need to have 15 to 16 points and at least 8 to 9 examples. Then let's take an example of how the brainstorming and the practice go hand in hand and build and strengthen each other. So for example, this is your framework for the answer of the art and culture. If you see in the introduction, your framework is try to keep your introduction as factual as possible. That is, mention the time period of the kingdoms, prepare one keyword for each kingdom, then try to remember the important kings from that kingdom. Or if you want to give the generic introduction, you can use this way. Second, in the main body, if you see the important aspect that are there into answer writing of the art and culture is first one is the use of the map. The second one is the use of the diagrams with respect to the presentation. And this third aspect is with respect to the dimensions. So in this, we have the sectional approach, where we are covering the different sections of the society or different sections or the sectors within the architecture. Based upon that, you will be generating the dimensions. With respect to the conclusion, if you see, if any of the site is there into the UNESCO World Heritage Site, you will conclude with that. The second aspect is, if it has influenced any of the later period architecture or the art, you can mention it. Or third, you can conclude with the Article 49 of the DPSP. Yeah, so this framework, if you see the toppers introductions, you will see the reflection of this framework. For example, so the first introduction is of Ishita Kishore, in which she has given the generic introduction. Yeah. The second one, if you see, the second introduction is of the Shubham Kumar, AR1. In this, the question is on the Buddhism, Jainism, where he has given the factual part by mentioning the origin of Buddhism, Jainism in the 6th century BC. The third introduction is AR7 Wasim Bhatt. If you see, the question is on Indus Valley civilization. There also he has mentioned the time period, the Bronze Age and 2600 to 1800 BC. So in this way, you prepare your framework for the introductions. If you see again the Kaktiya kingdom, there also he has mentioned the important kings and queens. Jaise for example, the Rudrama Devi. With respect to Gupta age, he has used the keyword. He should have also used the time period also. But the golden age of India. With respect to presentation also, if you see a simple colon and the underlinings enhance the visibility of your points. So these minute nuances also you can understand from the toppers answers. Now, how it is reflected, if you see the next, the post-Vedic period, it is also he has used the keywords self-enlightenment. With respect to the Sanskrit, here also he has given the factual introduction by mentioning the time period. So how it is reflected into our students, so how we help building those frameworks and how we help in application of those frameworks is, if you see our students, so the question was trace the evolution of the Nagara style of the temple architecture. If you see the similar framework, it originated in North India from Gupta period in 5th century AD. The same framework. With respect to the Cholas, again similar framework, 8th to 13th century under the from Nagara and Pallava style of the architecture, under influence of Nagara and Pallava style. So trace this is second student. In that also if you see 5th century, then again Gupta period, 4th century AD. So this is how you analyze the toppers answers, you develop the framework based on it, and you apply it into your answers. Coming to the main body part, again I have already talked about the framework for the main body where we apply the sectional approach. So if you see the answer of the Shubham Kumar, so the Jainism Buddhism architecture, he has divided into the different sections. Sculpture, then Chaitya Vihara, but the point is, if you see the use of the diagram, use of the example, each and every point of his is substantiated by the example. Here also if you see the stupa, the diagram, again use of the pillars, the use of the diagram. If you see again there are multiple examples. If you see the answers of Ishita Kishore, again use of the map. So the question was on the regional music. And here also if you see the use of the examples for substantiation, each and every topper apply at least 10-6 or 10-7 formula. If you see out of 5 points, she has given example to minimum of the 3 points. If you see Wasim Bhatt, again the examples, he has added it separately. Then with respect to the evolution of the Nagara style, he has divided into the phases, but again each point is substantiated with the examples and with the diagrams. If you see again with respect to the Cholas, there is a diagram and each point is substantiated using the specific example. With respect to painting also there is an example. If you see, then this is reflected into our answers of our students. So the 5th century AD, evolution of the Nagara style, again a diagram and division into the phases with example for each point. With respect to the Cholas, again substantiation and the example for each and every point. So the application of the 10-6 formula. Here also if you see the use of the diagram, and it's not just the diagram, it is the detailing of the diagram. Here also if you see the use of the map is also not generic, it is again a very detailed map with the specific examples for at least 6 out of the 10 points. Then coming to the conclusion part, again like I said, you have to use the UNESCO World Heritage Site or you can use Article 49. So if you see the Wasim Bhatt UNESCO World Heritage Site or the influence on the letter on art, for example, the Nagara style became a prominent style and spread as Odissi style. So that is the influence, later on influence. So this is how the framework is reflected into the answers of the toppers, and that's what we are going to do into the Samiksha program. So basically, in all the 3 to 4 lectures of the week, on an average, we will be brainstorming and doing a live answer writing of about 13 to 15 questions per day. So in that, it won't be just the brainstorming. We will be discussing the frameworks that will be applicable into that particular theme, along with the dimensions, the substantiation, the presentation aspect, as well as the value enriching content in our live answer writing. So if you want to see how we are going to do this, so this is how, or in this way, we are going to write at least 500 to 550 questions in our 40 to 45 lectures from the span of October to January. So if you see again, the same framework we have applied, the same 2024 question is there. Underline the changes in the field of society and economy, factual introduction with mentioning of the year. Then with respect to the changes of the society also, we have applied the sectional approach where we have covered the different sections, that is the caste system, the women, then with respect to the social mobility, then public administration. And again, out of the 4 points, we have given examples in about 3 points. Then the second part, if you see changes in economy also. So out of the 4 points, we have given examples into the 3 points. With respect to the conclusion, we have followed the influence aspect where we have highlighted the influence of the Rigvedic and the later Vedic period on the modern Hinduism. So this is how you apply the framework. And for that, all you need to do is the effective brainstorming, understanding of the frameworks, and it's not just the frameworks. So in the span of 2 weeks, we will be covering at least, or we will be finishing at least one subject, and based upon that, you will be having a bi-weekly test or the full-length test where whatever topics we have covered into our lectures, there will be the test paper on that particular topic. So if you see effectively, the 2 important aspects that I talked about, the first one is about the brainstorming, and the second one is the simultaneous answer writing through the mock tests. So both will be getting covered through this. So do join me on 2nd of October at 5 p.m. for the orientation session where we will be discussing the structure of the program, and we will be also covering our first chapter, that is the nature and scope of the Indian Constitution. Thank you. All the best.